Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room this Thursday morning. 94.4 Nairobi, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, Eldoret is 96.7, Nyeri 90.9 and 97.7 in Malindi. The Situation Room is Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's start the hour with today's proverb. In French, please.
Yes.
Oui, madame. Oui, oui.
Oh,
Silence and the other...
Silence
and
le frère.
Silence et le fracas sont le frère.
Bas. If you didn't get it, it's okay.
It's okay.
You know what?
You are not the target audience.
No, the thing... what I wondered, in the language it was first spoken in, before it was translated,
Yep.
it would be interesting to know what was actually said.
In Kilingala.
Kilingala is actually not
it's
not
not
an
a
original
language.
language.
It's not a language.
It's not an original
Maboko.
language. It's a mixture of French, Swahili, and a little bit of English.
No. This is somebody who loves a certain genre of music.
We
It
have
is clear.
understood.
Yes. And so he's speaking music to us
Bolongo
now.
Nangai.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Bolingo na ngai mapema silence. Bas.
Oh,
So
you
in
have
English,
problems.
please translate what we've said in French and Lingala.
No. I don't understand the two languages you've just mentioned, but English I understand. Silence and noise are brothers. Hey!
Silence
And noise.
are brothers.
Kelele are brothers.
Like this. Bongo mingi loki.
You know, this man was a member of a band.
This man is not well.
No,
Really?
he is a member of a band. It is clear. And I even know what part he played in that band.
You-
You know, most people know that the person who plays the drums is called drummer, isn't it? In Eric's time, they're called drummalists.
The drummist.
Wow.
Mutu ya kucheza drum. Haya. Anyway, it's the conversation continues. Now that we're talking about entertainment and we are entertaining ourselves, the entertainment industry in this country has really taken a hit since the COVID-19 measures were announced in the country. Remember, even before we got our first case confirmed on the Friday the 13th of March 2020, already some measures had already been announced in terms of how flights are going to arrive into the country, in terms of international meetings taking place, in terms of hotels and how they were operating. So already a number of the people who are operating in this sector had taken a hit. And then the measures were announced. And number one was, okay, first of all, night curfew. Then second of all, bars closed. And the sale of alcohol in bars at night, therefore, closed. This is an industry that is serving very many people. Tens of thousands of people. And actually, if you just put the entire hospitality sector, remember when we spoke to the CEO of the Hotel Keepers and Caterers Association, he told us easily 3,000 people were affected, lost their jobs. Now, pubs, entertainment, restaurants, these ones have continued to take a hit. At some point, the CS for Health, Mutahi Kagwe, said, all right, so we can start allowing restaurants to have some seating service instead of not just the takeaway, some seating service. And then they said, all right, so when people are sitting in there, you can have a drink with your meal. Okay. Then some people started selling smokies in their bars and they said, no, these are restaurants. And then we saw some measures also now being announced again and said, all right, so what's going to happen is no sale at all of alcohol in any restaurant, or pubs are closed anyway, bars are closed. And then there's the question, the back and forth of some clarification being sought by the industry. We run a hotel. We have residents in the hotel. The resident is asking for an order of a drink to have in their room. Is
With
it
their meal,
allowed?
yes.
With their meal. In their room service. Is this allowed? The CS for Tourism, Najib Balala, responded to the industry and said, according to the protocols announced, that is allowed only if the person in the room is a resident. So you can serve that. But alcohol at the restaurant, no. Alcohol in the hotel's bar, no. All right? More clarification also being sought. So can we, and the Minister is still responding and clarifying the air. However, we have seen also a group that's saying that they are employees and others who work in this sector launching an online campaign saying, you know what, many of us are really following the law, and then there are few of us who are breaking the law, and those few who are breaking the law are making the rest of us suffer. Can we sign up this petition online so it can be taken to the government and they can allow us to continue operating? This back and forth has a huge impact on very many people's livelihoods. And to speak to us this morning on this particular matter is none other than the national chairperson of the Pubs, Entertainment and Restaurants Association of Kenya, PERAK, and this is Alice Opee. Good morning, Alice.
Good morning, Eric.
Thank you very much for speaking to us and welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you.
Let's start just straight from the beginning. COVID-19 impact on pubs, entertainment, sports and restaurants. How big is this?
Wow. This has been one of the things that we never saw coming as an industry. And when you talk big, we are talking losses, millions of jobs lost. We are talking investors closing and going back home. And we are talking about government not able to collect revenues and manufacturers not able to, make their money.
So it cuts across, not just the people who've been employed, but everybody who supplies in this sector.
It's everybody. It's actually everybody, and it affects other sectors within the economy.
Do we know an average or an estimation of the numbers? Let's just start first of all with your membership. How many people are subscribed members of PERAK? And so we know that those ones obviously are directly affected because these are the owners of these establishments.
When I talk about subscription, I'll talk about subscription in relationship to last year vis-a-vis this year, because our subscription are renewed annually.
Okay.
Last year, we about 2,000 members, PERAK members. That includes the pubs and entertainments. And we're looking at, in Nairobi alone, we had 10,000 registered and licensed outlets. So if you look at Nairobi alone, and we are countrywide, so you find we have cut that by almost half this year because our renewals are within the first quarter of the year.
Yeah.
So we're looking at now 1.2 million as opposed to the 2,000. And again, countrywide, we are looking at about 25,000 restaurants. I'm not even touching on the pubs and the entertainment joints.
Yeah.
If we go by the suppliers list, we are looking at almost 60,000 countrywide of the pubs, entertainment, restaurants. Again, I would like just to clarify that the restaurants don't operate in isolation. Most restaurants, a very small percentage, operate in isolation of the bars. Our licenses are in categories, and most of the licenses have always been bar and restaurant. Bar and restaurant because you find it's more of a dining and wining kind of establishment. So this year, we are down to almost 800,000 of non-subscription.
Those are
that's a big,
quite a number. And then now those that supply into this, I can imagine when it comes to supplies, if it's restaurant, there's those that supply food, pubs, those that supply the alcoholic beverages, and entertainment. Of course, we're talking about DJs, bands, dancers, and all those. These are very many people. By your estimation, how many people are we talking about then who've been impacted, especially from the establishments that have been closed?
Okay, when I talk about employees alone, an average outlet employs between 10, and I'm keeping this to restaurants and bars, because based on the reopening of the industry, it was not including the standalone bars and entertainment joints. So if I talk about just the restaurants and bars, we're looking about 10 to 150, 200 employees per outlet. And if we average that, we talk about 75 people. So 75 people times 25,000 outlets countrywide. Those are big figures. We're talking almost 1.3 million people who have lost their jobs. That's direct contact service employees. And then we have now the DJs and the bands. An average outlet will keep, whether casual or permanently employed, there'll be the band that performs every 2 to 3 times a week. There'll be a DJ who performs almost 4 times a week. And there'll be other, form of entertainment. Let's take outlets like Carnival, for instance. We have stand-up comedies that were also generating income through entertainment. So entertainment is very wide. We talk about events that we've been hosting. Most events are hosted in most of our outlets. So those are all job loss, whether it's an event organizer, whether it's an artist, upcoming artist, whether it's an existing artist, whether it's a DJ. So it cuts across the board. So all these people have lost their jobs. So we are talking 1.3 for direct employees, and we are talking almost about, I think, for about another 800,000.
Alice, this is very unique in the sense that, just as you've said, this is, direct contact individuals who need to be in a space in order to fulfill, a certain role, servers, waitresses across the board like that. So was there something that could really be done? Because I see it as a restaurant is closed, people have lost their jobs. Because there was this whole clarion call when all of this started, is that people then had to think out of the box. You could then work from home or have meetings via Zoom kind of thing. But there's nothing creative you could do with this, because if restaurants were closed, for example, you don't have patrons, so people's jobs were gone. So there was really nothing that could be done, was there?
There was really nothing that could be done. You couldn't have said it better. And I must say that, our industry is unique to itself. It's a very interactive industry. And whilst we didn't see this coming up, nobody saw this pandemic coming up. And I must commend our government. They've tried to help us, and we're in the process. They've engaged us in what should be done. But yes, we cannot serve food from home. We cannot.
How exactly has the government helped you as an industry?
As an industry, just by just listening to us alone, that is a plus. Giving us a platform to listen to our voice, because it impacts on the government. And why we say they listen, let me talk about our tourist sector, our Honorable Najib Balala. We approached him because we fall under the Kenya Tourism Federation. So our umbrella body is Kenya Tourism Federation. So that involves the Qatar airline operators, tour operators, hotels, Kenya Association of Hotel Keepers, PERAK. So you cannot operate in isolation to our industry. So the government had to first understand what is it that we bring into the economy and how are they going to lose. So why I say they've helped us is the reopening, because we closed, then they reopened. For them to have reopened, they had to listen, because like she's asked, our industry is very unique. We can't work from home. We have to actually be serving. It's a very interactive and a social kind of setup. Yes. So
I'm trying to do a comparison, Alice, and I think it might be difficult, because if you look at a country like the United States, where the eat out culture is very strong, very vibrant. You don't have people cooking at home the way you do, for example, in a lot of countries here on the continent. So it was very easy for them then for the clarion call to be that when everything had to shut down because of COVID in the US, for example, there was a clarion call for, order in. So there were outlets that remained open, and people could then order in and get their normal meals at home, because this is something that they were used to doing. Do you see that it would have made a difference if the culture here of an eating out was vibrant as it is in other countries?
One, we also have to appreciate that this is a third world country, for instance, and our culture and traditions also vary. A typical Kenyan household would want to have home service food. But we have also been acquiring, with the advent of exposure, we've acquired the habit of eating out. And if you looked at the number of restaurants that have come up in the recent past, there are many. and you cannot open such setups or outlets when there's no clientele. So that was already a boom. The culture of young adults actually eating out and families opting to entertain themselves at least 3 times on average in a week. That culture was now already coming up, and I think for us it's been a big blow because most people don't go back home. Most Kenyans don't carry food from home, so it's very easy to just walk into a restaurant because every restaurant is next to every office.
Yeah.
Every office building has a restaurant. So the culture had already been spreading, and we had already reached a point where it was normal. So unlike America, of course, America has actually had it, gotten it hard because we are talking about 1.3, they're talking about 15 million people who have lost their jobs due to this. So according to us, it's a big blow to our industry because it's a livelihood. I put it this way. Most of the investors in this industry, our industry, we've invested so much money to put in a decent restaurant in terms of ambience, in terms of security, in terms of parking, in terms of engagement of employees. It's very, cash intense. And if you look at the flip side and you actually ask yourself, if you're going to shut down our business just like that, we have to deal with the dead stock. We have to deal with the landlord. We have to deal with the loss of jobs from our employees. So it's complicated. It's a bit complex. It's something we didn't see coming. Neither did we see the pandemic coming in.
Yeah. We're having a conversation with Alice Opee. She's the national chairperson of the Pubs, Entertainment and Restaurants Association of Kenya, PERAK. We want to know what's happening to this industry now that COVID-19 has ravaged the economies of very many countries, including Kenya. What's happening to the pubs, entertainment and restaurants industry in the country, the hospitality sector? What next? What does the future look like for this sector as well? You had talked about the kind of support that you have received from the government and saying, well, we appreciate, at least from the get-go, just them listening to you is something. We also know that the president, for example, the government announced a number of stimulus programs that were targeted at this industry, well, the whole entire hospitality industry. 2 billion shillings, for example, for hotels and other related industry businesses, 2 billion. And when you talk about entertainment, we know that there's the 100 million shillings for artists. Are these enough?
About the stimulus package, well, it's unfortunate as an industry we don't know way forward on that because there was the 3 billion that the president announced that was going to the hospitality sector. Right now it's a gray area because we are learning that the money is not going to affect our industry, or it's not going to be put towards our industry. We are being pushed towards trade because this money was supposed to be given to our industry directly. And so far, well, I'll say it's a gray area. We don't know how that is coming because this was supposed to help us revamp, help us put back, help us recover. But we're hearing a different story. So I don't really want to dwell on that. A different story. This money is going to go to probably hotels.
So hotel is, I'm assuming, the one that has accommodation.
Accommodation.
In us in Kenya, hotel in hotel, restaurant in hotel.
Which we would like to actually clarify.
Thank you.
A lot of people assume that if you're in the hospitality sector, it's limited to hotels. Hospitality is wide, and we have different categories. We have the restaurants and bars.
Yep.
We have the standalone bars. We have the nightclubs. We have the nightclubs / entertainment outlets.
Yeah.
So when you talk about hospitality, it's wide. Hotel falls in the hospitality as well. So what happened with this stimulus package, we've been trying to follow up. And so far, we haven't gotten quite clear direction on how this money is going to be.
So let's just say that you haven't accessed this money, as the members of PERAK have not accessed
We haven't
a shilling
accessed
from
this
the 3
money.
billion shillings.
How would it help
And-
this money, Alice, if you were to get it? What exactly would it be able to do for members of PERAK or for these outlets?
I put it this way: a lot of people are going to close, for instance. So there's a group that already closed, and I don't think they're going to open, especially the entertainment sector. There are people who are barely surviving. There are workers who need to be paid their dues, and there are workers who need to be paid to move forward. We need to restock. We need to reinvest
Yeah.
this particular amount of money so that we get back on our feet as we deal with this pandemic. So this money was going to be very helpful in terms of restructuring, restocking, ensuring that our employees are safe
Yeah.
and catered for. So without this stimulus package, we are lost. So I would say we are in the process of communicating with the government and trying to see how this can come across to our members. But so far, I think that is a frustration we are getting on the ground. There's no clear, direction on how this money is coming. So we've been pushed to trade, and we've been told, okay, fine, trade will be able to give you a stimulus package. They'll be able to cater for you. But you see, we fall under hospitality.
Yeah.
I want to be very clear. When you look at tourism is wide. And you start with local tourism. We are currently we've already opened the airspace for international tourists.
Yeah.
Yep.
The first thing that you want to do when you get into a country is to experience the country. You will not be confined to your hotel room. You want to go out there and see what are the restaurants offering.
Yep.
What is the culture of the place? So if you go and you get into a place and you're coming from a culture where dining and wining is the norm. And you get into a place where you'll be told, oh, here you can only dine, but you cannot wine. So that is one of the challenges we're facing. If you go, like Latif today, if you go to a different destination, the first thing you want to do is to find out what happens here by day and what happens in this country by night. So we have the curfew, we are not able to operate. So if we close a restaurant is a dining experience.
Yeah.
Most
It's a
people are
gateway
working
to a
from home,
culture.
right? It's a gateway to a culture. Most people are working from home now. So for us to run a successful business, we need at least 80% capacity. We must acknowledge and appreciate that this is not the government's making, the pandemic. This is something we didn't see coming. So we've adhered with the rules and regulations. We've put protocols in place. We've reduced our sitting capacity to almost 40% or less. Note that most people are now working from home. So even with the 40%, we are only experiencing less than 25% walk-ins. There are very few reservations. Most reservations are usually for dinner. So reservations, we say it's out. Then you take us back and you say, okay, fine. If we are adhering to these protocols, what are the protocols? We went for hand sanitization. We had our staff catered for. And when I talk about government engagement, the testing kit the testing was about 10,000 shillings.
Yep.
We negotiated. The government brought it down to 1,000 shillings for us. The hospitality sector, especially the restaurants, for reopening, which was a very big plus.
Yeah.
And for that 1,000 shillings, okay, fine, they said, okay, they have to be tested after every 2 weeks. So the results would come after 2 weeks. We went back to the drawing board. It was lifted. They said, okay, fine, we are going to have a one-off testing. Once you've tested your staff and you have the COVID certificate, you have the Form C to go around and reopen. We went back to the government to say, do we have to ask for new licenses?
Right.
Because we had already paid for our licenses at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Again, the government then was helpful. They said, okay, we'll endorse the license once we go through the protocols and you've adhered with the protocols. So that was taken care of. Okay. If I'm going to operate on a 40% because I've adhered with the rules, and our income is about 50% or 52, between 47 to 50% on food, and we have 40% on beverages, and the rest is other incomes. So we are operating on already 40% occupancy
Yeah.
or sitting,
Yep.
and I'm expected to pay my rent, to pay the staff, suppliers. And the irony is, the moment it was open, the first thing that happened was a boom. The rent owners were like, pay my rent.
Yeah.
Unlike hotels, the
We've not been
disadvantage is we've not been working, but everybody's desperate.
Yeah.
Unlike hotels, the disadvantage is most hotels own the premises.
Yeah.
Our restaurants, we rent the premises. Suppliers rent. They realize, oh, they've opened. I want my money.
I want my money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the employer runs and says, oh, listen, I want my money. You didn't pay me. It was shortcut. So we are getting pressure from every angle. The government says, okay, we are 1 minute sick. We are rushed to hospital. This is hypothetical. And I'm using metaphorically. You go, okay, we're closing. We are opening. Okay, we've opened. Oh, you're HDU. You're back to ICU. So we don't know our fates for now. Because we reopened, people went, borrowed money to reopen, to follow the protocols. And I'll tell you, it's an average of between 300,000 to actually just adhere with these protocols.
For what? For an average facility?
To reopen. To
Hold on,
almost
I mean,
a
like-
million.
300,000 shillings for a restaurant.
To reopen.
reopen.
We closed
Yeah.
Yeah.
for a period of time. When they closed, we had to close. Then we had to reopen. So for us to reopen, and this is specifically to the restaurants, because the pubs and nightclubs and entertainment outlets have not opened yet, as
Yeah.
far as we're concerned. So we reopen, we pump in between 300,000 because there's the issue of plumbing, making sure there's water. We take our staff for testing.
Yeah.
We do all these things. And there are people who initially just rushed for the 10,000 shillings testing because we're desperate
Yeah.
to earn some money. So here you are, you've gone through all this. Then a month later, we have to close.
You're sent back to the drawing board. The impact of COVID-19 on this particular sector. Alice, you talked about, well, the kind of investment that the pubs and restaurant owners, the restaurant owners specifically, had to inject just to reopen when the government eased those restrictions. A couple of weeks down the road, the government had to take a step back and order, no. There are some things that are happening here that we must reverse. But also, it was out there in the public domain, Alice. I mean, we cannot really run away from the fact that we saw very many images where people would end up in these restaurants and they're having alcoholic beverage, and the issue of physical distancing is not being observed. The waiters are not wearing personal protective equipment, even just as basic as face masks. And this was an issue. The issue of closing and observing the closing hours, this was also an issue. Do you feel that, yes, there are some of your members or some of the operators in this sector who had a big role to play in what action the government had to take?
Well, that's without a doubt, Eric, because, like I said, the reopening of the industry was for the restaurants and bars. It was not for the entertainment sector. Of course, we have a few people who will abuse and flout the rules that the government has put in place. And that was a clip covered several weeks ago. And this has actually affected us because I think it would have been best that those particular outlets face their punitive measures. An ideal restaurant, I'll tell you, will invest between 10 million plus to put up an establishment. Our licenses run up to about 18 licenses for you to operate a restaurant and bar. So anybody in their right minds would not want to lose their license by abusing government directives. So a case like what we saw should have been individual punishments. They should have withdrawn the license, and no restaurant operates after hours. An ideal dining restaurant wants to close by 11 o'clock. Anybody operating after that is now entertainment. And the government has been very clear.
Yep.
So these are people who went ahead, flouted the protocols, did not, because they didn't care about what was put in place. So if you look at Westlands, because we focus a lot on the people who opened, we went to Westlands, Kilimani area. Most of the places had already closed. Actually, the reporter said the places are quiet, people have gone home, everything is quiet. But we focused on the 3 or 4 or 5 outlets that actually opened. Up to now, we want to know what action was taken. to these particular outlets.
The ones that flouted the rules.
Instead, sorry?
The ones that flouted the rules.
The ones that have flouted the rules. What action so far has been taken by the government or the law enforcer to those particular outlets, because it was rather obvious? So why should particular outlets cause the entire industry
To suffer.
their livelihood? That is the biggest question.
So why sit back then as an association? And one would
You raise
assume
any
that you also have a responsibility to those law-abiding members of your association. Why should you, as PERAK, then also keep quiet and keep pointing fingers at the government?
No. We are not pointing fingers at the government. As PERAK, we actually work with the government. We are not pointing fingers at the government. We engage. We come up. We were engaged in the coming up with the protocols.
Did you ever make any public statement against these particular establishments? For example, saying, as PERAK, we want to condemn in the strongest terms possible.
Yes, we did. We had a presser, just I think 2 days before that, and we totally disassociated, because PERAK is a body and it's a willing person who wants to, I want to join PERAK. And when we have a code of conduct and we have a code of ethics, which is to be followed. We made a follow-up. Who are these outlets? What do they do? Are they falling under a restaurant or a nightclub? And if they're falling under a nightclub, how come they have a license to operate when the nightclubs are not open yet?
Yeah.
Yes, because not everybody is a member of PERAK. Much as we are talking for the industry, not everybody is a member of PERAK. Like I said, we have almost 25,000 restaurants across the country. And our membership is about 2,000 as of now.
Alice, in an ideal situation, what would the government need to do to cushion you sufficiently so that you can actually survive COVID?
You see, like, for an association to thrive, we can self-regulate because we have members. What the government needs to do, we need to be very clear about the stimulus package. We need to have people who can adhere with the rules and regulations for the industry. And much as the government is trying their best with this pandemic, it is important that they engage the stakeholders. I'll just give you an example of, as far as of now, what is happening. Our industry affects so many sectors, as I mentioned earlier. So in terms of government and revenue collection, remember we have about 1.3 million employees.
Yeah.
We pay taxes to KRA. We pay tourism fund. We pay NSSF, NHIF, all these corporate tax and, payee. What is happening right now is without the employees, then we've cut down on payee, NSSF, NHIF, the rate is down. Tourism fund cannot collect. Tourism fund is able to actually sponsor students studying at Utalii College. If the taxes have gone down, the corporate tax is not there. It's already a big blow on the government.
Yes, it is.
These 1.3 million employees, it doubles up or triples to, they have dependents running, being an African country, running between 4 to 6 dependents. So if you calculate that, you can see the impact we have on that end. We have suppliers, including manufacturers, and we are not limiting it to even people who today I cannot go and apply for DSTV or such kind of things. So what we are requesting the government to do is to engage us, and really, as they flatten the curve, of this pandemic, we also wish that we'd flatten the curve of the economic challenges that we have.
But there's something that you mentioned, Alice, and I want to head back there, which is the issue of self-regulation and personal responsibility. I would imagine that, just like you've said, everybody who is running this business has invested quite a tidy sum of money. And therefore, it would be rather obvious that the best that they'd like to do is to operate within the stipulated rules and regulations so that you can continue operating in a profitable manner. And then we see, and we are not going to run away from the fact that we saw very many of these establishments openly flouting rules. When it comes to the rest of the rest of the investors in that neighborhood, what action can you take to ensure that there's self-regulation, there's adherence to all the set protocols, there's adherence to the membership and the code of conduct and code of ethics that you've put in place, so that you can say that as an industry, this is what we've done, this is how far we've gone to ensure that there's compliance, and then you can engage the government. Because as we stand today, I'm sure if we asked the CS for trade, and not for trade, for tourism, or the CS for health, they tell you, but look, you saw it for yourselves. These
True that.
establishments were not following the rules. And there's no way we can start sending police officers to every establishment to go and police them on how they're going to operate.
We have to take responsibility. As PERAK, we're also big on social responsibility. And it's important that we own up to some of our challenges. And in a case like that, I remember you had a chat with Mike the last time, and it's all about Nyumba Kumi, the neighborhood. People should report. We have a hotline as of now that we're able to report. We are able to report this place is open, this place is causing this, and this is going to spread this pandemic even more. So for every area, you find we are in touch with the OCS in charge of that area. We have groups that we're able to communicate through. We are able to communicate with the people on the ground. We are able to communicate with the licensing officers. We're able to say these are the people that are flouting this rule. Because if I talk about restaurants, because restaurants, if you look at an ideal restaurant situation, it's very hard to find somebody operating after hours. If we're told to close at 8, we are closing at 8. So if I find that somebody is not following the rules, I think it's best that we just inform. It becomes our own responsibility as citizens, not only for our industry. As citizens, we have to take risk. This thing is affecting all of us. Whether you are an outlet owner or you're a citizen, you have to take responsibility. So I think there's need for education.
But it sounds to me like if you had all these structures in place, what failed?
For this particular incident?
Yes. What failed? Because we are back to this situation because something failed.
We are back to this situation because something failed. It's because of the plan of reopening. We advised that if we are to reopen the economy, we do it in phases. So if it's bar and restaurants, we actually start with the bar and restaurants. And we actually open to see if they are only restricting it to bar and restaurants. Then we go back to the licensing office. How many people were allowed, to operate, and where are they? So we have to have this list of people who are around, because the country being into county zones right now, it's very easy to follow up through our licensing office. How many people are allowed to open? Did they allow the standalone bars who had previous licenses under bars, or did they allow only the restaurants to reopen? So there are few people who will flout the rules. There are people who do things that are not in order. So I think it is our social responsibility as a country for people to report, for people to be able to say, you know what, this is wrong what you're doing. For the public to come out and say, you know what, we don't like what is going on. A point in case is right now we have given an open whatever to wines and spirits. We've closed everywhere else. But we've said, okay, the wines and spirits can operate.
Is that a good move?
A very bad move, if you ask me.
Why is that?
Because you're encouraging drinking from home. And that is one of the things that we worked very hard with NACADA to discourage. The children are already at home right now. An average Kenyan would walk into a restaurant, have a glass of wine with a meal,
and go home.
After 1 or 2 glasses, they go home.
Right. So do you think
that, to walk into
if I can interject at that point, Alice, and so that if we just see that the protocols then that were employed for the, phasing, reopening and all of this, do you think that then captains of industry should have been involved in this decision-making process?
That has been our plea. That has been our plea because we understand our business better. We understand what is to be done. We understand what the market requires, and we understand our customers.
Okay.
So if we engage in this, of course, we also have to look at it. Oh, the government is trying to do the best they can, and we are trying to support the best they can. But now we are going to see another advent of another culture coming in. We are going to see so many kids getting into alcoholism.
Yeah.
We are going to see a lot of mental challenges. We are going to see already there's a lot of domestic violence. This is a gentleman who was used to passing by for a drink or two and going home. Suddenly you're home, there are challenges. You want to buy a bottle of something as opposed to having 2 shots or 2 glasses of wine. So you're carrying that home. You want to finish these wines and spirit shops have actually come and packed right next to our restaurants. Some of them have opened right next to our establishment. So somebody will go and get drunk, walk into a restaurant to eat. If you find a drunkard in our restaurant,
You'll assume
because
that they
they've
drank
found a
there.
whole bottle, you would not know where they've had the drink.
Yeah.
So we're in a bad situation because this opening of wines and spirits, and I'll have haters out there, it's not going to help the situation.
Alice, can I ask, do we know of any country where these suggestions that you're making, the phasing of the opening or solutions, innovative solutions, have actually been arrived at, so that industries similar to yours have actually gone back, maybe not to full capacity, but at least that to a functioning capacity?
We are not saying that we must open, and we are pushing the government. You must open for us the restaurants, the bars, and you have to lift the ban. No, we are not saying that. Most countries who have reopened, you find there's a lot of discipline around it.
How do they ensure that this discipline is actually adhered to?
I'd say this. For instance, you have America is already complaining. They're closing. And they've tried, it's not worked. But because we understand our unique culture as Kenyans, we know that Kenyans will want to adhere to the rules. And if somebody comes to my restaurant and walks in and wants to eat and drink, we'll just limit it to just eating and then drinking what is required, and then we close because they have to leave by 7. So I don't know of any country right now that I can say off the cuff that has tried this and failed, but I'll specifically talk about Kenya. And I know America is suffering right now. I know South Africa is out on the streets at the moment. I know most countries are affected. This is something we didn't see coming. But all in all, we have to try and see ways on how we can help. We are not pushing the agenda that we must sell alcohol, no. We are pushing the agenda that can we actually be involved in this process so that we see how we run with it and how we can curb this. On one end, help this situation, and on the other end, help us survive our business. Because I can assure you, already the outlets that have closed, about 20% are not going to reopen. There are 20% outlets that did not open after the lift of closure of the restaurant and the entertainment sector, because already loss of income, and you sent your staff home, the rent, you cannot pay everything, so they opted to close. Then a very small percentage reopened and pumped in money. Then now they've closed. After they've closed, we've so far realized about 15 to 20% again are not keen on reopening. A lot of members are saying, you know what, it's not worth it. Let's wait for this thing to settle down. So there are different people react differently.
So it's collapsing an entire sector here.
Yes, I cannot go by best practices as of now because there's a pandemic. It's affecting the whole globe.
I think
The
the point
operation of wines and spirits.
The point she's making is an extremely valid one with regards to her business. But as a business person, I would suggest that you perhaps look for an alternate business that could make you money, because COVID isn't about to sort of like run away and get lost and disappear and vanish. And if you're waiting for COVID or the situation to sort of like present an ideal situation where the business as it was known would come back, then that may not be a good business policy. The policy should involve, think, business person, what else can I do if this isn't working as I thought it would? That's what I would say.
How do you react to that? I mean, you've already sunk in a lot of money into this one.
What did you say? 10 million shillings to put up an establishment like this?
And you've closed, and you don't have any other. I mean, for the last 6 months, you've not had an income. So you don't even have operating
And your
cash.
business requires individuals to be in that establishment to operate.
Look, I understand this. I'm not in that business. You asked me, I'm speaking hypothetically here.
We are pushing the hypothesis back.
Yes. The alternative would be to tell the government to intervene. Remember, my earlier question had been, what should the government do? That's where now the response would come in and say, the government should provide moratoriums. The government should provide tools that will enable such establishments to survive. Whether it's giving them direct cash, whether it's giving them rebates, whether it is reducing taxes, whatever it is. Because anything that large, in the absence of government intervention, they will go under.
But also, let's also be realistic here. The truth is that the government has not ordered the closure of restaurants. The government has basically only said, do not sell alcohol in these facilities.
Yes.
But people can come and eat.
It's like you have legs and you're being told to walk with your hands.
People can come and eat. You can continue providing the same services for people who come and sit down and eat, or even move on to thinking, how can I deliver food?
But Eric, there's a sector of that business, the bar and restaurant business.
Yep.
That business, it's a two-tier business. There's bar, it complements restaurant. There's a restaurant, it complements bar. Yes. If they were just bar, then of course then you close. There's no story there.
But also, Alice, like you said, about 40% or so is what comes from the bar, and then another 40 or so percent comes from the restaurant. And then the other comes from other services. So you're not really operating at zero. There's the 40% of the restaurant, at reduced capacity, as well as a quarter of the 40% is what you...
Eric, there's the issue of even the seating capacity and the capacity to have clients is reduced, number one.
Yep.
Then you're fighting with costs, which aren't going down. Then you're fighting with just the number of people who actually come to seek your services. Man, it's not even a catch-22. It's something like a catch-88. It's difficult.
How I know we're coming to time out on this, but Alice, in the future, I mean, we've heard even from CS Balala and talking about the tourism industry and saying it's time for people to get creative. Is there room for creativity in this sector where you see it? To be able to say, because I mean, it has been said that COVID might be here for a while. Some of these things that have been put in place would be around for a while as well. Is there room for creativity in this sector? Is there room to do something different, or is it just we have to wait until things return to normal?
Improve. And as you prepare to answer that one, let's also pick this one caller from Mombasa, Blackwater. Good morning.
Hey guys, how you guys been?
We are well.
We're doing well, Blackwater.
Okay, now I'm in this industry, right? And I'm sorry to say, I will give the government and the CS what you call the bird on what they're doing.
Okay.
If we sit back and ask ourselves, since this restaurant, because it took us a lot of money to reopen. Now, you ask yourself, have you had an incident whereby they say that since the restaurant opened, they had a COVID incident at any of the restaurants? Because we abided by the 2-meter space and everything. We're doing at 40% for people. We're closing by 7 because the staff have to go home. You don't have an option on that. And remember, most of these restaurants we're talking about are big restaurants whereby meals are made as per order. So the client has to sit and wait. We're not talking about fast food. You see, we're confusing fast foods. Fast food in town and where you walk in, pick and go. But here you come, sit down, you want your nyama choma, you want your chicken choma, you want your goat, or and you have to sit and wait.
So bottom line, Blackwater, what you're saying is that you feel like you've been picked on.
I think we're picked on because of a situation of a one-man miscarriage. That's it.
Right.
So you come into the house, your son has made a mistake, and you cane all the kids in the house over an issue by an individual who was actually in a bar, not a restaurant.
Thank you, Blackwater. Let's hear Alice respond to this as we conclude the conversation. Alice.
Yes, to an extent, yes, I agree with him totally, because it's like road accidents happening. For instance, do you go and close the whole road because there's so many accidents, or do you deal with that particular incident of the accident? So we are frustrated That's for sure. And to answer the previous question, we cannot reinvent the wheel into another sector. We are trained hospitality people. We are trained hoteliers. Sometimes this is what we know best. So we cannot just wake up and say, okay, fine, let me try this other avenue of business.
Right.
So,
Alice,
our
you wouldn't even
industry-
consider opening a wines and spirits?
why would I open a wines and spirits? I already have a wines and spirits
You
in my
already have
bar.
a bar. Thank you,
I
Alice.
already have a bar.
Alice, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. We wish you guys all the best as you continue engaging with your members and with the government as well on this and with your clients. Alice Opee is the National Chairperson of the Pubs, Entertainment and Restaurants Association of Kenya. Have a good day, Alice.
Thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you, Alice.
Asante.